Merry meet, my fellow bookish witches. Welcome to Witchy Reads, a place where we talk about books and other bookish things. For the last month, I have participated in my first readathon, the Asian Readathon. But what is the Asian Readathon, you might be asking yourself? The Asian Readathon was created and is hosted by fellow booktuber with Cindy. It happens annually every May, and each year has a different theme. This year's theme was based off the film Past Lives. It is a Korean film that focuses on finding love that was once lost. It was such a great theme this year with some great prompts. If you would like more information about how the readathon works, the prompts, the rules, etc., you can watch my announcement video or with Cindy's announcement video, which will have way more information than mine does. Over this last month, I have read 3 books from 3 different Asian cultures across 5 prompts. Let's talk about the books I got to read. The first book that I read for the readathon was The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monika Kim. This book covered prompt 1, a book written by an Asian author, and prompt 4, read a debut book by an Asian author. Quick content warning, this book has some pretty intense body horror, gore, and depicts murder and a little bit of racism. If any of these things are triggering for you, just please be aware before you decide to pick up this book. It is a Korean-American feminist psychological horror that follows Jiwon, a second-generation Korean-American college student whose world is turned upside down when her appa, or father, reveals that he has been having an affair and leaves their family. From there, we see Jiwon spiral, struggling to keep her broken family unit intact and keep from failing out of college her freshman year. But these issues are nothing compared to the unquenchable thirst she has recently acquired for eating eyes. Not just any eyes, blue eyes. The eyes of the fraternity boys who fetishize her. The eyes of the men who see her as weak. The eyes of her mother's new boyfriend, George, who puts on an air of importance and creepiness around Jiwon and her younger sister. Of all the eyes she has tasted, his will certainly be the most satisfying. This is the only book that continuously made me grimace, but it also made me want to keep reading more. This was such an intriguing read. I am floored that it is a debut novel. It was just that amazing. Aside from the grotesqueness, this book was a great glimpse into a different culture that is trying to exist in America. The family dynamics, the superstitions, and the second generation in America experience was so interesting. While I can empathize with Jiwon's story, I will never fully be in a situation where I will experience a lot of things that she goes through. And this was the reading experience I was looking for, not only in this book, but in all the books I read for the Asian Readathon. I think this book in particular did a great job of dropping the reader into the second generation Korean American experience, especially in giving us the outlook of a young woman who, while slowly going off the deep end, brings an air of understanding that I think was so important. This is not surprising considering Kim herself is a second generation Korean American who used the superstitions told to her from her mother to create this story. The characters were written so well, especially the woman main character, Jiwon. The only thing I have a criticism for is that I was hoping more would be done with the obvious sapphic through line that Jiwon's character arc had started and never really resolved. There were also some minor plot holes, but I think everything else was so brilliantly executed, pun intended, that they didn't bother me all that much. I can definitely see the similarities between this and How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brent. But where Brent fumbled, Kim excelled. This is why I rated The Eyes Are the Best Part 4.75 stars. I know just how lucky I am that NetGalley approved my request for an arc of this book. I truly sent in that request, not really expecting for it to get approved, and when it did, I was ecstatic. The Eyes Are the Best Part will officially be published on June 25th, and I highly recommend this book if you are looking for a great psychological horror that also does a great job at exploring a different cultural perspective. The second book I read for the readathon was Wondrous Journeys in Strange Lands by Sonia Nimr. This book covered Prompt 2, a book that feels timeless, and Prompt 5, read a book with a story, character, or world that represents what you would want in your next life. This prompt in particular very much focusing on the film Past Lives. This just so happened to be the oldest book I read, it being published back in 2013. It is a Palestinian historical folktale fiction that follows the life of wandering spirit Kumar. From her birth as a twin in a small village where her family was shunned, to her travels to Palestine, being sold into slavery, being set free in Egypt, to then dress as a man and join a pirate ship, finding a loving husband and starting a family of her own, then losing both and taking all she has learned to find them once more. I am not exaggerating when I say I think this book has the most beautiful, winding character journey that begins as something similar to the tales of Arabian Nights. While I did love the woman main character, I was really disappointed that the comparison of folktales stopped before the midway point. I wasn't necessarily disappointed at following Kamar's own story, but would have loved more back and forth comparisons of her stories and the folktales associated with Palestinian culture. To be frank, this story didn't provide many folktales of Palestine, which is what I was hoping for. Based on the description, I really thought that this was going to be more of a comparison with a woman main character telling the tales of Palestine as she goes on her own journeys. I wanted to be more immersed in the Palestinian culture, and as I read through this objectively interesting story, it was the one main thing lacking. A smaller issue, but one that still irked me, was how the ending resolved itself. It technically ends on a cliffhanger where, after losing her husband and child, Kamar's husband comes back in the last couple pages. They come together to search for their lost child. We never get to see the conclusion of this. We never get to see her hold her child again. As a parent, this was just sad to read. I had hoped for more of a happy ending than a bittersweet one. Honestly, in my opinion, I think it would have been interesting to see the reverse happen. She finds her daughter, and then they come together to search for the husband/father. Mother and daughter adventures. It would have fit perfectly within the story. Alas, these are the reasons why I ultimately rated the book 3.5 stars. While I wasn't completely enamored by it, I felt a lot of the storytelling was just surface level. It did get me curious to read more Palestinian authors and actually do a search for more Palestinian folktales. The third and last book I read for the Asian Readathon was Lay and the Fire Goddess by Malia Maunakea. This book covered the last prompt. Prompt 3, read an underrated book. This book is a middle grade Hawaiian mythology adventure published back in 2023. It is also the only book in the readathon that I listened to on audiobook, which was a great way to take in this story. I loved hearing the correct pronunciations instead of just guessing and probably guessing incorrectly. The fact that this book is middle grade is why I selected it for this specific prompt. I think middle grade books are definitely an underrated gem of the literary world, which is a shame because I think some excellent stories are written as middle grade, as is the case with Lay and the Fire Goddess. Lay, or Leilani, is a middle schooler traveler who visits her grandmother in Hawaii every summer to learn about her culture and carry on her family's mo'olelo, stories of Hawaiian culture and the gods and goddesses. When she comes out during this most recent summer, she not only rejects continuing to learn these stories, but disrespects the fire goddess, Pele. And this is when she starts to learn how real these stories are. Pele reacts to Lei's disrespect by kidnapping Lei's best friend, who turns out to actually be a spiritual guardian for her family. She teams up with a sassy animal companion a la Moana, who is a bat, and is the mentee of Lei's family guardian, whose true form is an owl. Lei's goal is to save her best friend and break the curse that Pele has unleashed on her family, either by praising Pele or challenging her and winning. It was so fun to go on this adventure with Lei as she learns about her family's stories and accepts who she is as a Hawaiian. There is some great Hawaiian lore that is fun and packed full of history. In addition to the lore, I also think this book does a fantastic job of depicting a young middle school girl and the trials she faces in life. I always found it interesting how much of a spotlight we put on high school in media, be it books, films, or television shows. The hyperbole of how much things change, personalities, friendships, romantic relationships. My hot take is that middle school is a much bigger change and can result in a far more lasting impact on a person's growth and character. Lei dealing and worrying about not appearing as cool as her peers because of her foreign Hawaiian culture, the fear of losing a friend because people change and grow apart. Granted, this plotline is not resolved in this book. This is one of a series after all, but I would hope that it takes the route of change versus forcing a friendship that has grown apart. Showing this is far more realistic and healthy for the audience this book is marketed to. Growing, changing, and accepting who you are is a hard and oftentimes painful process that we experience a lot of times in middle school. I love that this book showed this while allowing readers to be steeped into Hawaiian stories from a pre-teen point of view. These are the formative years, and it's why I loved the character of Lei and how she progressed in this story. I also rated Lei and the Fire Goddess 4.75 stars. I would highly recommend it, especially if you have kids in that middle school age group. This is a great read, and it's a great way to expose them to a different culture. I am so happy that I got to participate in this readathon. It was the perfect way to diversify my reading list with books I had never heard of and ultimately ended up really enjoying. Doing this has definitely sparked my want to look up more diverse books, be it in the authors who wrote them or the characters the story is based on. I just want to say a huge thank you to With Cindy once again for creating and hosting the Asian Readathon. I can tell that she puts so much care and appreciation into this, which made it an easy decision to participate in. I honestly don't see why I wouldn't continue to participate in this on an annual basis and look forward to the theme for the Asian Readathon in 2025. If you participated in the Asian Readathon, what books did you read? What did you think? How did you get on in completing the readathon? Let me know down in the comments below. I would love to chat about the books we've read during this readathon. Speaking of chatting about books, I've started a Bookish Witches book club on Fable, a mobile app where you can follow and hold discussions in different book and television clubs. I thought it would be a fun way to talk about the books I am currently reading. If you enjoy my videos and would like to support my channel, the best way to do that right now is to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and share any videos that you particularly like. It really is a huge help, and I greatly appreciate it. Until our next chapter together, merry part and blessed be.